Hey everybody, how's it going? Everybody, anybody, how you doing? I wanted to talk about my microphone and specifically why I chose it, what I'm doing with it, and how I tuned it for my voice. Uh, Truth be told, this was going to be a review of another microphone, and for reasons that I don't really want to discuss, just didn't work out. So I thought it would be better to talk about this microphone that I'm using. This is the Electro-Voice RE-20, and here's the reason why. The RE-20 doesn't get a whole lot of love in the podcast community. Shure has essentially, well, I wouldn't say they've locked up the market, but they've made they've made sure that a lot of people are using their microphones, which is fine because their microphones are great. The RE-20 is one that I selected mainly because I saw broadcasters using it. And what I do here on this show and in the training and everything else is that I speak. And to me, that was more important than having what everybody else had, right? So it turns out, though, that the microphones cost about the same. And so it's not like I'm saving any money or spending a ton more money going with this microphone. But they've both been out for roughly, let's see, 50 years. Let's see, we've got 20 years, 30 years. Yeah. They've been out for a little bit longer than 50 years now at this point. I believe the RE-20 was 68 and the SM7, which wasn't the SM7B initially, that was 69. So they've been around for a while. They're battle tested for sure. And so I don't it's not that I didn't I wanted to be contrarian or anything like that. I just thought I wanted to hear the differences in the microphone. And I had heard my voice on the Shure SM7B, and I thought, sounds fine. But what about how I sound on the RE-20? And I ended up liking the RE-20 better, mainly because it picks up some things, some characteristics of my voice that I didn't feel like the SM7B was picking up. Specifically in the high range, you can hear my S's, and anytime that I getting up into those mid to high frequencies, the microphone picks it up. It's not very muddy, and that ultimately is what sold me, is that the dynamic range of this microphone was enough to convince me that this was exactly what I wanted to use. So this is the one I've been rocking now for a little over a year at this point, and I don't think I'm gonna get another one, meaning a different brand. I do have another RE-20 here, and what I wanted to do today was go through essentially setting up an RE-20 from the get-go. Now, I'm doing this through the Rødecaster Pro II. You don't need a Rødecaster Pro II to do the things that I'm doing, but it certainly helps. I'm also going to be tuning the microphone for the Rødecaster. But first thing that I'm going to start out with is just what comes with the microphone, go through the frequency response and all that other fun stuff, and talk about how the mic performs just in general. And if you have any questions, this is kind of an open-ended discussion. I put this at the beginning of the chat. We don't have a lot of live shows that I've been doing in the past, so this is something that's new. If nobody shows up, I'm still going to leave the live broadcast up, because I have a feeling that there are a lot of people out there like me who are looking at the RE-20 as a serious contender for their podcast, whether it be audio or video. And I wanted people to get a chance to see how I set it up, because I didn't have all the references that I needed. There are plenty of comparisons of SM7Bs and RE-20s out there. Plenty. And so you can get all that information wherever you want on YouTube. There's so much out there. It's almost like, but most of it's pretty old. Most of it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2+ years old. So it's not like anything's changed. These microphones have not changed. As a matter of fact, the cousin of this, or the original of the RE-20, is pretty god awful looking. It is it's kind of like this straw beige color, and I'm not a fan of it, and I'm glad they had a black version available. So when I'm wearing like a black shirt, which is more common than not, it just blends in. And so I don't need it to be flashy. I need it to sound good. So I don't need, fancy pop filters on it and things like that will detract from me. It's more about what I'm saying to you rather than, having this honking microphone in front of you. And there are times where, I have a boom mic here that's right above me. Let me see if I can switch over to that view. You can see, yeah, you can see it right here. I've got a boom mic here, and yes, I am wearing shorts. But that is, that this mic I've been starting to play with, because I do have a lot of hand gestures. I think there's some Italian in my family, so I tend to get a little bit, especially when I'm getting excited about something. I will knock this microphone sometimes. I try not to, and I try and sit on my hands so that I'm not, not touching the mic inadvertently, but it does happen. That said, this is the best quality possible. I don't care what other microphone you have. When you have a microphone that's, 4 to 6 inches away from your mouth, that's going to be the best possible quality that you can get from a microphone, whether it be dynamic or condenser. So, one of the things that I did want to discuss, though, is how I have this room treated. And believe it or not, I really don't have any room treatment in here, sound treatment, I'm meaning. I still do have a lot of hard surfaces, and the only thing I've got is like straight up above me, I've got some of those hexagonal shaped panels that you kind of tack onto a surface. I've got, well, half of the ceiling is basically what's right above me is got that treatment to it. So it kind of tamps down on any kind of echo or reflection that you hear of the audio. And the thing is, though, one of the things that I always worry about is that I'm talking into a bunch of monitors. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monitors, and of course they're all glass monitors. So that's going to echo right back at me if I'm not careful. So I tend to talk a little bit down away from the monitors. The monitors are up, and that controls the reflectivity of the microphone. Also, the off-axis rejection of this particular microphone is really good. So I wanted to go over that real quick. I brought up the spec sheet for the microphone just so we can take a look at it, and I can do a quick demonstration of the way that the microphone picks up sounds. And then let's get into setting up a completely brand new mic on the Rødecaster Pro. So let's go over there real quick and take a look. All right, so you can see here the frequency response, and when it says 0 degrees, that means basically top down. So the microphone itself, the capsule of the microphone is actually about, what is this, about 1.5 inches away from the very end of the microphone here. It's down below some foam. That's what contributes or prevents plosives. So Peter Piper picked a podcast, right? You're not getting a lot of P's and B's and anything that would pop it. But that's also mic technique. It's not just the foam. But in any case, you're going to talk to the microphone, kind of down at it, kind of like you would with an SM7B. But a lot of people will get a microphone and they don't realize where the microphone's capsule is, and then they talk into the wrong part of it. So that's always something to understand about your microphone. So right here, 0 degrees means that it's basically you're dead on. And what you can see here is there are 2 lines for 0 degrees. You've got one that's the flat. They're both kind of flat, but you've got one where the microphone has no filters engaged. It has one filter on the microphone. And so this is where it has no filters engaged. And you can see that the roll off on the low frequencies goes pretty far down into the 30s and the 50s. And that's pretty severe. And let me demonstrate that. So right now I do have what's called the high pass filter on. And so you see the roll off is sooner. And so it's picking up a lot less of those lower frequencies. But if I turn that off, you can tell it's booming now a little bit. And that is, some people have that, but because I have my voice, even though it's nasally, it still does have a lower component to it, and I don't want that accentuated. So I just flip that back on, and now my voice is a little bit less boomy. And there's something also about that is that it contributes to fatigue. So if you find yourself listening to somebody and it's like, God, the voice is just killing me, I can't keep listening to it. Hopefully that's not me, but even if it is, there are some times where people have the microphones just cranked way too high, the compression's way high, the EQ's out of whack, and this high pass filter is not engaged. So that's the only switch on the microphone. So that's what I've got turned on now. And you can see the frequency response down on the lower frequencies is definitely less as a result. And then they just kind of match each other from about, what is that, about 400 hertz on up is identical. And so you can, that gives you an idea, but you can see also if you go down, you got 5, what is this, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Yeah. So you can see at 180 degrees around the microphone, it still picks up sound, but it's at a much less of a response. But let me show you. I'm going to pivot to the side here, and just to get an understanding of how the mic picks up the audio and generates or picks it up with these frequencies in mind is what's called the polar response, which is right here. And you can see straight on, it's that's going to be the best pickup. And then even off at 30 degrees, either way, in either direction on the microphone, it's still going to pick up a really nice sound. Once you start getting to 60 to 90, as I'm doing right now, this is 60 and then this is 90, you notice that the audio does change substantially. Now I'm gonna go all the way to the back of the microphone, and now you can hear this is how it sounds. So that is what they call rejection, and the rejection of your voice is on or other sounds that are not going directly into the capsule is what you want, especially with a dynamic microphone. So when it gets lower, when these frequencies get lower, like you can see here, or the volume, the decibels here gets lower and lower as you get closer to 180. That's good. That's what you want, that rejection pattern. Now, something else about the RE-20 that I really like is what they call their variable D technology. And this is something that they pride themselves on. And essentially what it means is that you can get really close to the microphone and it doesn't get overly boomy. You know, your voice does get more presence, but it doesn't muddy, it doesn't get bad. I mean, I'm not going to put my mouth on the microphone, but I'm basically 75% closer than I was before, and the audio or the quality of the audio is essentially the same. And it does this through the slits on the side here. That's what contributes to the variable D technology. So that's something that they've got patented and registered trademark and all that stuff, and they love people talking about it because that's what gives the mic its characteristics. Also, what kind of makes the mic look dated. So, but there is a purpose for that. The microphone is ribbed for everybody's pleasure. So, anyway, let's move on here. Don't you love it when they have these updates just pop up out of nowhere? Can't they tell that I'm in the middle of a live stream? All right. So this microphone is tuned. This is the one I use most of the time. And I've got this right now. I've got it on. You can see, if I pull it up a little bit, you can see that this is a shock mount, quite a large shock mount. And it is also on this arm here, and that's connected to my boom, which is off to the side here. You can't see that, and I'm not going to yank it into frame, but there's an arm, so if I do hands-free, it just sits there, right? And this is what I want. Now, I don't like this look. I don't like it where the mic is occupying this much of the screen real estate, so I tend to put it off to the side like this. And like I said before, I usually wear black when I do these, and so if I'm wearing black, the microphone just blends in. You'll get the highlights, the specular highlights from the key light or the fill light, but that's it. So this is and this is Electro-Voice. What is this? The model 309A. That's what it works with. I've got a Rode cable here, XLR cable connected to it. And then I've got the boom arm that I'm using is from a company called Gatorworks, or I think it's Gator Frameworks, and I just shorten it to Gatorworks, but I've been using this one for a while. Excuse me. And it's much sturdier than other ones that I've worked with. For instance, the blue boom arm, I tried to get that to work. I tried. I think I broke 3 of them trying to tighten it down to hold something with this much weight. But even the Yeti, which is actually over my shoulder back there, this guy right here, that Yeti I had mounted on, I had it mounted on a blue boom, and our boom arm, and it kept drooping, just kept going down. This thing stays locked. And so I really enjoy it. Anyway, that aside, and I've got links to this stuff in the description down below, but let's go ahead and set up the other microphone and go through the steps, what's involved, because I didn't have these steps, and maybe this will help you with, if you purchase an RE-20, what is the what are the steps to making things happen. And so here we go. So first things first, let me switch over to my Osmo. Okay. So you can see in the background here, this is my, let's see, I gotta give this guy a little bit of play. Otherwise it's never gonna bend for me. And this is something that I actually wanted to talk about when you're running XLR cables to these mounts, making sure to give them enough slack so you can rotate the mic around. Okay, so here's another Gator Frameworks mount. This is another shock mount, but no microphone here. So here's the microphone, right? And this thing is, it is beefy. I mean, beefy. You could hurt somebody with this thing. There's barely any plastic on it. What plastic is on it is really where the switch is for the filter, the high pass filter. Everything else is solid. Even the connector here for the XLR is solid. The grills are all, the mesh grills on here are all metal. And the only thing inside here is a bunch of foam, but you need that. That's what controls the pop filter, right? So going back to this, we're gonna mount the microphone in here like this using the shock mount. So the shock mount that you can purchase, it's a separate purchase, but it's something that you definitely want to have, because this is, here, I'll just tap on the microphone that's live right now, right? That's tapping on the microphone. And if I hit the top where the capsule is, right? So that is, I mean, it's to be expected, right? When you make physical contact with something. But you can see here, I'm on the U-shaped portion like this. I'm on the U-shaped portion, and it's just barely picking up anything because of the shock mount. Even if I tap the shock mount itself, very little handling noise. And if I'm down here on the boom arm, it's almost nothing, right? So you need these microphones are very sensitive, so you want to make sure to pick to get yourself some kind of shock mount. And the ones that Electro-Voice sells are not cheap, but you really need them. I think there's no, you definitely don't want to have something that is cheap for this. I mean, if you're going to spend, the microphone itself is $450. So if you go and cheap out on the shock mount, you're just doing yourself a disservice. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get this guy mounted in. And this is where I had the most trouble initially. So this is what, here, I'm going to get it in camera here. This is what you get, all right? And it's like you get this thing, and then it's got it's got a hole here, and then it comes with these rubber pieces, but they're not attached to this thing. I figured it out. Eventually I figured it out, looked at enough pictures and go, okay, I got it now. But this is, so if I were to take the microphone, and this is part of the way how I figured it out, if I take the microphone and slide it into this, let me back up a little bit here. There we go. So now you can see if I slide it into the mount, there it is, and it's more or less locked in. It's not totally locked in, and that's because I'm not I don't have it screwed down. But now that I understand the way that the microphone goes into this, now I have to figure out how this part interfaces with the frame around it. So I eventually figured it out, and here's how you do it. So you take these little rubber doodads that come on here, and come with it, and you put them on each one of the 4 end caps along the back side of this mount. And then you take it, and you want this thumb screw, you want this pointing downward, and then you feed it through the frame. So here's the frame for the shock mount, and then just grab each one of these rubber pieces, and they have little clips on them. You can see right there. It clips onto the metal frame. All right, come on. There we go. Ta-da. And then you do the same thing for the bottom. But before I do that, I'm going to pick these up, and you see the cap itself. I'm trying to get it so you can still see it. The cap just goes right on the other end here. So you can see it goes up to the frame here, and then comes back down and interfaces right here with the shock mount. And then the same thing goes for this one. Yeah, let's just put that on. Okay, so now that's there. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom, like so. And then this one goes right to the bottom as well. So now we're kind of the way there. It looks like a little TIE fighter or something. But what we want to do is we take these nubs here that are up top and down below, and bring them out to the corners. And make sure that they stay, the little groove that's in these nubs stays, connected to the frame. But you just pull them out and put them to the 4 corners, like that. And now you've got the shock mount mounted. It's nice and tight, right? It has some give to it, but it's nice and tight. And then the RE-20 itself has, here's the switch for the high pass and regular settings here. It also at the top, there's this little tiny metal nib that's poking out that actually connects in. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I put you can see that mount right there. You see at the top there, that's where it goes in. So you just slide it in like this, right? It's slid in, and then you use the thumbnail down at the bottom to secure the microphone in. And that's it. Now it's connected to the shock mount, and it is not going anywhere. Pretty cool. And then, of course, you connect your XLR connector. And this one's easy because it just goes with the little press button up top like that. And now it's in. And ta-da, you're done. Pretty cool, pretty easy. Well, I say it's easy because I've done it enough times now. But there's definitely there's a finesse that goes to this. So something else I wanted to do, I want to show you how I've got the cable routing going. So here's my XLR cable, and you can see I've got these little straps here, right? And these are they're like Velcro straps, and the way you work them, let's see, I've got an empty one here. Yeah, I got one here. It's okay, we got to put one on the mast anyway. Let's do that. So if I want to take this this cable and I want to wrap it to the small post that's coming down here, what I first do, you can see these straps, and you can get these on Amazon. They're like this, right? They've got a little end here. And so what you do is you put it around, these are like cable ties, but they're super useful for this application. You don't put the cable in yet. You just slide it in and you tighten it down to the item you want to grab onto. And then you pick, like in this case, I'm going to put my cable here and position exactly where I want, pull as tight as possible. Because it's Velcro, you just wrap it around. And that's it. So now I've got this tied on, and I'll put another one there. But this is how you route the cables, and obviously you want to do this when you are so like if my camera, this is a bad angle because my camera's coming at it this way like that. But if you look at me here on this one, you can see there's no cable on this side because it's on the other side, right? So go back here and we'll tie one more on here just for good keeping, good measure. Sorry, not good keeping, good housekeeping. And then tie it. There we go. And bam. Now it's all connected up. Okay, so now we've got that all connected. So now that this is all connected up, what I want to do is, and it's connected to the Rødecaster Pro, I'm going to move this up here. And then let me reorient things real quick here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. Sorry about that. I wanted to reorient the Pocket Osmo, and it was going to take a little bit of fidgeting to get it to work right. All right, so I'm going to bring, there's one more thing I needed to do. There we go. So, all right, so I've got the other mic basically where I can talk to it. And let's go ahead and switch over to the Osmo. There we go. And now I'm looking at my Rødecaster. And hopefully you can see everything okay. Let me pick on that. Yeah, we're zoomed all the way in. All right. So let's take a look at let's see here. We've got the mic is on number 2 and it's currently muted, but so let's go ahead and just I'm gonna switch off of the current mic I'm on and switch on to the one that's not been tuned. Okay, so here I am on the other microphone, and actually this doesn't sound too bad, but the first thing I notice is that the high pass filter is not engaged. So let me go ahead and put that on. Okay, so now the high pass filter is it's engaged. And so now what I want to do, and I'm sorry about this wonderful thing that's going on with the focus. I don't know why it wants to do that, but it's the Pocket 3 doing it. Hopefully it'll stay focused right here on the screen, which is what I'm interested in. So I'm gonna tap on the small here, just aim down a little bit here. There we go. And I'm gonna tap on this button here, and we'll see that it's just set to the dynamic microphone. Now processing is on. Let me turn that off. Okay, so this is without any processing. Sounds kind of muffled, sounds kind of low. So the first thing I can see is that I'm talking into it and I'm barely clearing the little green section, which is right here, right? And you want to have the microphone in you won't be able to, I mean, you need to have that level kind of somewhere in the middle here. So I'm going to boost my gain already, and I can tell already that by doing that, it sounds a bit better, right? So here is this is the microphone that we just hooked up, and then this is the microphone that this is microphone number 1. This is the RE-20 that I've already tuned. Okay, so back to this one. And so right now it's just set to the dynamic preset, which is built into the Rødecaster, right? So there also is a preset for the RE-20. And if you scroll to the side here, you'll eventually see it, RE-20. So if I tap that, this is now enabled. So this is what Rode thought, okay, this is what you need for the microphone to perform well. And you know what? I'm quite happy with this like it is. So again, this is me on the new mic, and this is me on the original mic. So you can see that they're more or less the same. So, you know, let's go ahead and just, we'll step through the settings and see what Rode thought was appropriate. Okay, so we'll go here and we'll see, okay, the high pass filter is off, which is good because we have the high pass filter on the microphone. And now what we've got here with the de-esser, it is turned on. And you can see as I'm talking into it, seashells by the seashore. I can't even get that right. I don't know how Curtis does it. He must practice a lot. But man, you know what? This focus thing is going to drive me bazonkers. Let me see if I can get that fixed real quick. Let's see if that helps at all. If I just tap there. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, okay, much better. It's not going in and out, in and out. Okay. So let me look real quick here. And so, yeah, okay. So now let's go ahead and we've got the de-esser set up. And if I go to the microphone 1, you can see that I also have the de-esser set up. So right now I've got that set. I like to start with the presets as a baseline. And now that I'm looking at it, it's pretty similar between the two. So yeah, I mean, I don't see, there's a little bit of a threshold threshold difference, same. Yeah, so they're more or less the same at this point. So that's good. I don't think I made any changes to it anyway. All right, let's go over to the next one, which is noise gate. Now, this is the noise gate default that comes with the Rødecaster Pro II. And so I've got my threshold is -45, hold is 80, range is 18, the attack is 1.3, release is 121, and hysteresis. I keep thinking of a hysteria from Def Leppard, but that I'm just showing my age at this point. But you can see, let me turn off. You don't need me to see me looking down at the the Rødecaster. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, there we go. So you can see now that the way that this is working, we're not getting any popping, right? Now my room is relatively quiet. I tried to silence any kind of sources that would generate anything that would be disturbing, as far as like outside traffic or anything like that. And it seems to be holding up pretty well. Also, more importantly here is what I'm getting out of this microphone is that it is not popping. So it's really hard to tell when I'm, if I start talking, you don't hear a lot of popping sounds, which is when you have an issue where the noise gate is configured to open or close too quickly. And I'm not hearing any of that. So I think I'm just going to leave that alone. And then we'll go to the compressor. Now, the compressor right now is set to threshold is 24.6. Attack is basically at the bottom. Gain is at 4. Ratio's at 2.5 to 1. And the release is at 2 milliseconds. So you might want to play with this. This is largely dependent upon your voice, how your voice is going to sound. And what the compressor does is it brings down the very loud sounds and it brings up the very low sounds. And so an overly compressed voice will be something that'll be extremely obvious when you're when you listen to yourself. So one of the things that you'll notice right away is, like, for instance, if I hit that ratio and I start dragging it down, there's a point at which it's compressing and it's, at 4.5 to 1, it's a bit extreme. I tend to keep it somewhere in the 2.5 to 3.5 range. It depends. I've had to make changes to this. Like if I have a cold and my voice changes, I'll mess around with the compressor a bit. But this is largely a personal preference thing. Curtis Judd, who has a channel, he has a way that he demonstrates how the compressor works, and I would strongly go and look at that. But as far as like the built-in presets for the RE-20 that come with the Rødecaster, I think you can run with those as a great starting point and then just make small changes to it. So I would make changes. My big ones I would make changes to, assuming that you're starting from the defaults, the built-ins. I would make changes to the threshold. I'd make changes to the ratio, and I would make changes to the gain. And you can see if I crank the gain here, see what happens when I do the gain. Yeah, that's insane. That's a little bit too much gain. So I'm going to bring that back down. Okay. All right. So that is the gain for the, the compressor for the RE-20. And I think right now, again, so this is the compressor on the RE-20 that we just hooked up. And this is the compressor of the RE-20 that I have originally had configured. So they're pretty close. Okay, so now the next one is going to be your equalizer. And you can see here that the highs are boosted. Yeah, I can turn this off. So this is without any EQ at all. Sounds okay. I mean, it sounds better with the EQ on, but so here it is again with EQ. So you can see what's happened here. The high bell, or this point right here, is set to 74, 76 hertz. And the gain on there is 4.3 dB. So when you adjust the gain, that's what adjusts the height of that curve. So you see I can bring it way down, and basically all my highs go away, and I bring that back up, right? And now I'm back to where I was. The RE-20 does a really good job of picking up your high frequencies, so I would do anything possible. If you're not hearing it, I would do anything possible to boost those highs, and that you do that through the gain. The mid bell, so the mid bell is actually set to 869 hertz, but probably more importantly is that it's a minus gain. So it's kind of hard to see here, but there is a line that kind of bisects the low and the high and the mid, goes right across there. And that line is 0 dB. So this is actually being pulled down. The mids are being pulled down, and here's why. If I crank these mids up, you see what happens here. It starts to box my voice, and that sounds terrible. So I'm going to go back down to roughly where it was, and that you generally speaking don't want to mess around with the mids. The mic does a great job as is. If anything, you might want to pull them down. Excuse me. And then the last thing is the low bell. And look, I already put the high pass filter in here. So if I were to, go in and boost the gain on the lows, that would kind of defeat the purpose. But you see here, since it's cut, right, you can't, whoops. You see, because it's cut, it still tries to boost them, but it's doing it almost artificially. So I don't mess around with this too much, because right now the high pass filter is already cutting this stuff out. So what you're boosting is what's left. And, if you're trying to get rid of a lot of the boom in the sound, that's ultimately you don't need to mess with this number too much. Okay, here's one of my favorite ones. This is the exciter. And it's one of my favorites just because of the naming of it. So the big bottom. So the big bottom is your lows, right? This is your bass. Now, again, I put the high pass filter on, so I'm kind of cutting out a lot of those. So let's just make some changes, and then maybe I'll turn the high pass filter off, and we'll see how that sounds. So I'm going to tune this. Right now it's set at about 80, and I'm going to set the drive up. So you see what happened there? Wow, look at that. That's crazy. This is at 80 hertz. Anything around 80 hertz is going to get boosted. And same likewise, if I go the other way, you see it doesn't really do much of anything. So leaving it about where it was should be fine. The oral exciters, it is pronounced the same way, but I'm sorry, I got to get my mind out of the gutter. But the oral exciter, it still can't get it. It's still going to be the same thing. Is going to control your highs. So you're going from, right now in this case, you're going from 1,000 hertz. And the harmonics is really, how much is it boosting? See how it did that? See how it really boosted the highs. And conversely, I can go in the opposite direction, and then not much is being done there. So the exciter, the overall exciter, is something that if you're trying to enhance certain qualities of your voice, and this is the case for most of these settings, is that you're gonna be making tweaks and changes based on your voice. It's not, you can play around with this until you're blue in the face, and you can watch as many videos as you want, but until you understand what the effect has on your voice, and this means putting on a good pair of headphones and making small adjustments and then making larger adjustments until you notice something, and then, you know, kind of tweaking back and forth, back and forth. That's essential to getting the right settings for you. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for every person. So if you have, say, for instance, a guest that comes in, best to start with your baseline settings of the RE-20 and then just make minor tweaks based on that person's voice before you start recording or doing your show. And I think there's only, yeah, all that's left now is like panning and things like that. So you don't really, at this point, you know, you're kind of set. So this is, again, this is mic 1. This is the new mic, and I'll try and get a little bit further away. So this is mic 1. I'll actually hit it the same way. So this is roughly the same angle. So this is me talking into the second mic and me talking into the first mic. So roughly the same angle to my mouth. And so notice you haven't heard a lot of plosives at all. And again, that's mic technique. You want the mic off. You don't want to be doing that, right? You want this off. So if you're a heavy mouth breather, for instance, you want to get that off of the microphone. So by putting it in a place where, like what it is right now, where it's any kind of airflow movement goes beyond the capsule, and what little does hit actually gets intercepted by the foam inside the top of the microphone here. That's what you want to be working with. You do not want to be talking directly into the microphone like this. Although it sounds great, it picks up everything. And I mean everything. So you want to make sure that you kind of talk off to the side of it. And that's a much better mic technique than just talking directly down into it. So just keep that in mind. And that's why a lot of people do this. When you see people in their own video podcasts and the mics are kind of angled off to the side, you're pointing it at your voice, but you're not releasing any of your breath directly into the capsule, and that keeps it from sounding plosive like. So that hopefully that gives you a sense of what's going on with the microphone. I personally, the RE-20, I think this is one of the best purchases I've ever made for the studio. It sounds great, and you can tell between the two microphones. If I put the identical settings on the microphones, they are tonal matched, even though there's not a certification for that. They're tonally matched. They're built the exact same way, and so they're going to sound the same. And that's what you want. You want something. If you're going to have the same microphone, you better make sure that it sounds the same. Otherwise, you're going to be tweaking all these settings on the EQ and other various settings on your Rødecaster Pro, and it's going to be a nightmare. So, or having two different kinds of microphones, two different manufacturers. I understand that not everybody can afford a $450 microphone with a $100 shock mount. I get that. And so I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just saying that if you get one of these, when you get one of these, this is virtually indestructible. You could seriously hurt somebody with one of these if you tossed it at them. So they've taken a lot of punishment, and you still see them online. That's the other thing. They hold their value. So if you decide one day, I'm out, I'm not doing this anymore, you can sell the RE-20 for almost exactly what you paid for it years later. It doesn't depreciate because it's in high demand. And even if you knock $25-50 off the list price, you're still making good money, and you got your use out of the microphone. So I would highly recommend, whether you go with the RE-20 or you go with another microphone that's similarly known for quality, these don't depreciate in value. They're not like typical electronics. So matter of fact, I was just looking. Electro-Voice produced one of these. It was much, much smaller. They produced it in the 80s, and it's called the PL10. And the PL10 is like a mini version of the RE-20. And if you get one that's in really good condition, it's like $700 or $800 right now. And we're talking about a microphone that's 40 years old. So, they hold their value. Yeah, obviously, a lot more RE-20s have been produced, and they continue to produce them, but they really haven't changed the design all that much. Oh, and I did want to bring up one thing about that Yeti in the background. That was one of the original mics that I went with, and that Yeti made by Blue was actually made by Blue. So there is a, from my perspective at least, Blue is a good company, was a good company. I don't know what the structure is of the organization, but if you can find yourself a Yeti that was made in the early 2010s, before Logitech bought the company, I think you're going to do really well. They sound great. It's a condenser mic, so it's got different properties, and you need phantom power for it. But almost all the XLR interfaces out there these days have phantom power, so you shouldn't have any issues with that. But I'd still go for one of these. They get a bad rap in the podcaster community as like entry level mics, and I would say the ones that you can buy right now, yeah, definitely. But the ones that came out in the 2010s, like that one's no, that does have USB. That was one of the first USB microphones, but the XLR capabilities on that thing are stellar. You pass it through the Rødecaster, it sounds even better. So one final thing that I definitely wanted to bring up, and of course, if you have any questions, I don't see too many people watching right now. That's cool. If you have questions later, if you're catching this on the replay, ask them down below. I'll be more than happy to answer anything that I have. With respect to the audio interface, so I've been using, my Rødecaster Pro. This is what we've been working on, right? And this is not a cheap thing either. So the microphone plus the Rødecaster Pro, you're looking at so you're at $800 plus $500, $600. So you're in it for $1,500, taxes included and everything. So that's a big investment for one microphone and one audio interface. You don't need to do that. As a matter of fact, Rode does produce 2 other models of their interface. And I tried to go the cheap route when I first started this whole thing, and it bit me in the butt. It was really difficult to get the same settings and the same sounds that I wanted consistently, because the devices that I was trying to use, I was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And you have to think about that as like, you buy it once and you pay the price, or you buy it 3 times and eventually you get it right. But how much have you lost in that process? So you don't need to buy an interface from Rode, but I would recommend it because they've got all these built-in real-time effects. So, and when I say effects, I mean, the EQ and stuff like that. It actually does have effects too. I mean, I've got, I can talk like this if I want to, or, I can
do something like this.
That's all. It's fun, but I'm not going to do that most of the time. But the other thing that it has, like in terms of the Rødecaster Pro II, it has 4 mic inputs, and which is great if you're doing like a multi-person podcast. If it's just you, they have a lesser, it's not even a lesser model. It's just got less inputs, and that is the Rødecaster Duo. And you're saving about $200 or so by going that route. So that may be worth it to you. Even more so right now, as far as I can tell, the Rode Streamer X is available for $240, $250 right now. And it's a single input XLR or USB microphone. You don't have to use, this is XLR only, by the way. So you could go that route if you wanted to. You could go the Streamer X, and the Streamer X is cool too because it also has a video capture board built in. And so I feel like for somebody who's just getting rolling, it's perfect because you have a dedicated hardware device that actually takes your audio and your video and passes it through the same interface. So I think you're less likely to get things like frame delays, which is a big issue for people who have, like people like me. I've got my camera here, and then I've got the audio going into the Rødecaster Pro. So the camera's going into a separate interface than the audio is. And so sometimes I have to play around with delays, and that depends on resources being consumed by the machine. And sometimes they're synced up perfectly, and other times they're not. It really depends on your particular setup. But if you can get a dedicated hardware device, I would very strongly recommend that you get something that has audio processing built in rather than something that has to be done in software. And the reason is quite simple. You get a delay when the audio has to be passed into the computer for processing and then sent back out to your headphones. So any kind of changes you make, they say, well, you have a monitor plug-in, so you can plug in your headphones and listen to it. That's true. However, you won't hear it in real time. What you'll hear is the processed audio coming back after a couple of milliseconds delay. And trust me, if you've ever tried to talk normally and hear yourself come back into your ears, like two, anywhere between 20 and 30 or 20 and 100 milliseconds later, you can get in maybe a sentence before you're just like, I can't do this. So I would strongly suggest hardware. And even the Streamer X, which is a tiny box compared to the Rødecaster Duo and the Rødecaster Pro, it dedicates the hardware to do the audio processing. There is software control. So what I have accessible to me on this panel here for the Rødecaster Pro, this is all built in the software for the Streamer X. So you still have to control that on your computer, but the processing itself is still done on the Streamer X. So I've got links to all three of those in the description down below if you're interested in finding out more or just getting one. Anytime you purchase through our referral links, our affiliate links, that helps the channel and helps keep things going, keeps the lights on here. And I've got a lot of lights to keep on here. So I hope this was educational for people. You could go on for hours, especially if we had a big crew, chiming in or watching right now. I'm sure we would have a lot more questions, but because I stopped posting on this channel for a while, it kind of, the algorithm doesn't get out to as many people as it used to, and that's fine. I just want to do this stuff mainly so that if somebody does catch this, as a matter of fact, the last one I did on one of the lights that we had just done a review on. The guy said he watched literally right after I had done the live, and he was looking into that light that same day. So, if it helps anybody, great, because it's certainly having people to help me along get through this journey has been awesome. And so if you have any questions, just drop them down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. But other than that, I think I'm just going to head on out and go grab some lunch. So for those of you tuned in, great. Thank you very much. And for everybody else, like I said, just go ahead and check the description. Oh, by the way, one more thing. I posted in the description, I posted a link to this particular microphone, this exact microphone that I just hooked up. I'm putting it up on Craigslist. I originally purchased this as a interview setup, and the interview thing that we were going to do, we end up doing it all online now. So I don't have a need for it anymore. What I used it for today was the most I'd ever used this microphone ever. So it is in brand spanking new, I would say mint condition. And so if you're looking for a microphone like this, Hopefully you're catching this early enough that I haven't sold it already, but I did put a discount, and it also includes the boom arm as well. So the boom arm, the shock mount, and the mic. Save yourself a little bit on taxes. And, you know, if you're outside the Seattle area, we can talk about shipping, but I just wanted to let everybody know that. So check for the link down in the description for the Craigslist posting. All right, guys, take care. See you later.